Good? Be
Um,
sure,
I'm solid. We're solid.
okay, be sure and hit record, and then
Okay.
I'm gone. So bye.
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 All right, you guys ready to do this?
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, just
Okay.
real quick. I already made the Word document that she said you need to submit, so I'm going to submit that. Just
Great.
the one that says you have to meet, or you say that you met. So
Awesome.
Way to be on it, Ethan.
So if it's okay, I'll go ahead and kick us off. We want to take the next 60 minutes to move through the interview, just as a reminder around what we discussed previously in terms of the structure or the format we're going to follow. We had agreed to more of a free flow, more kind of casual, open dialogue approach. Though we do have our backup questions that we can refer to if we get stuck. But we said that we wanted to start with more open-ended questions, and then based on Raphael's responses and things that he might bring up or point to, that we'll just kind of freely jump in and ask follow-up questions. Just want to check in, is that everybody's understanding, and is everybody still comfortable with that?
I think we're all on the same page.
Okay, great. So we decided to focus on some specific areas of interest. What we decided on was team building and how you go about forming teams, Raphael, your selection process potentially. We also talked about focusing on how you go about managing, inspiring, and motivating teams and individuals. And then the third thing we talked about focusing on was your leadership philosophy and approach. So where we might get a little bit off track from these areas of focus, I might try to bring us back on to topic, just so that by the time we get to the end of the conversation, we feel like we have a pretty good sense of those three areas. Fair?
All right.
Okay. So does everybody have a printed copy or have access to the questions that they wrote for themselves?
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So Raphael, we're going to go ahead and get started with some of the general open-ended questions, but thought it might be useful to start first with maybe taking some time with you to provide us an overview or just general comments on your experience with teams.
All right. So, I did start with teams at a child when I started in soccer, and that's one thing that with sports, it definitely is a strong component, which I learned to be a part of a team. And from development, from recreational to travel soccer, which required a little bit more skill and technique, but also determination for the sport. It also drove me to become the team captain as I grew up and as we went through seasons. And so I was just a defender, but I led the team, and I made sure that I was vocal in every single process if it needed be, and everybody looked to me as our last line of defense, but also that I was knowledgeable. I was able to step in to fit in the roles that weren't necessarily defending. If I needed to be an attacker, even though I was in the defensive position, they saw me as somebody that could be versatile and actually just change up what position I needed to be. But of course, my main role was being team captain and being as a defender. That led me to get into jobs, and when that's the case of getting into any job, I start off as trying to own my position, which for the beginning parts of my jobs, I was in food service, and that had me first develop myself so that way I could better serve my teams, and so better serve the departments, or whether I'm serving the food line or whatnot. it's something that as you develop yourself to become the best that you can in your position, that helps you help the team out. After you are able to help the team out, then you're able to go ahead and successfully move forward and move onward to become a better, to make the team as a whole a lot better by your leadership. That went to me going to Walmart and starting off as an associate. And so in that diagram, it shows that we have the 4 levels of hourly. And so in the first level of hourly, it's level A. And that's just basic cashiering, very like cart pusher, not too much of needed skills or needed knowledge, doing the processes and what you need to do. So level B associate is a step up, and that's mainly dealing with service departments and actually being knowledgeable in those departments and being able to help and serve customers. So it requires a little bit more work and requires more technical skills. After that point, it's a level C. Now, level C is where you own a department, but you don't necessarily need to be leading any associates. You are in control of a department, looking at the paperwork, the forecasts, the numbers, what we are looking to expect to see what products we should place. But you're in charge of your own department, but you don't lead anybody. And finally, for the level D of hourly, which is a step before salaried members of Walmart, is a position where you are owning a department, but also leading a group of associates, whether they be, and for the ties with that is that as if you're level D, you lead people that are level B, as it is a service department that you will be running. If you are a level C, you have the possibility of having a few associates that are level A, but it's not requiring or demanding that position. So in the level D, you have a lot more responsibilities and a lot more time is put into that, into training you, into making sure that you are able to lead and help train associates, improve associates, but also improve the department and everything. So I did start off with being a level A at Walmart. This was where I first was at the front end. I made sure that I owned my position, and after I owned my position, I worked and that I investigated what I could do to help my team at the front end succeed. And with the fact that there were either people calling in or people that were sick, or there was just not enough hours put in that day for every position to be filled, that meant that I took it upon myself, since I was able to succeed in my position, to go ahead and fill those gaps in, fill the holes that needed to be filled in that front end team. It was very much appreciated. Everybody saw that I had initiated, and that was something that they saw me be able to fit a higher role because I was becoming. So once I decided to move up to level B position into a service department, I learned more technical. It just made me think about what it is that I am doing as a service, how I am helping customers. They saw that I was able to own that, but then I decided once circumstances were as they were, I wanted to develop my skills into leading people in that department, helping train them, and making sure that they're selling their products right, but also being knowledgeable in the products. And it took a lot of time to actually learn what it is that I can do as an associate to help out everybody. They saw that I had potential, and with that same department, I was a level B, and then I jumped up to the level D, which was serving that same department. And that was that's my past, as I should say, led me to where I am as a department manager of entertainment.
All right, I'll go ahead and take the next one. So I think it's really important, especially when someone takes a leadership role, that they kind of work their way up just, to better understand a lot, like you said, what the people down on, for example, level A or level B are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So what are some really important things you think you learned on levels A and B that you took up with you to level D, and kind of just how that influenced your leadership?
So something that in learning for level A and B, one of the things that is a factor that, as I thought of whenever I was in those positions, I needed to be able to be trained well to do whatever that hole is, let's say, that position that's missing. I needed to be taught well how to do that position. So that way I'm not messing up anything for the team. So what it took was it needed to have those people that were in a level C or in a level D position make sure to effectively train me right, but also to prepare me to, prepare me in the mindset of like what it is that I could do if a surprise came. And it was what I brought was that I needed to know that everybody has different situations coming into the day. And, sure, it can impact yourself. And that's how I thought about it whenever I was level A or B position. But as I learned that I need to, as in a level D position, I need to learn that there are going to be those circumstances where people are going to have those personal issues come into the workplace. And so how do I, as a manager, affect those people, and how do I bring them back into work mentality and actually bring them back to, hey, we are in this job, and right now at this point in time we are working. And that's something that I realized, I need to be considerate of feelings and not so much of, hey, you're not doing this task, you should be doing this task. It would have been the wrong approach. And if I had, and that's why bringing that mentality of, because managing is going to be changing up your personality and mindset, that I remembered I did have personal issues, but as a leader, I need to be able to help understand people's personal issues and make sure that I'm on their side, but also to bring them back into the whole, we are working at this moment. So it's a lot of different things that as a manager, you don't think about what it is a person's personal knowledge in the task that they're given. So teaching them right and teaching them right the first time so they can know what to do the next time around and the next time forward, but also that we also deal with personal issues. And so if something is going on that can affect what I'm asking an associate to do. So it's a couple of things that went ahead and are like the main factors of what I did bring to being in a leadership role.
Okay. So now I'll ask a question. My question is similar to Sarah's, but it's kind of the reverse. So as an entry-level associate, I remember when I was doing like entry-level stuff, or even now I'll think like, oh, this is stupid or something. Why do we have to do this? Are there any lessons that you learned as a department supervisor that makes you realize things you could have done differently as an entry-level associate, or made you realize, oh, that wasn't so stupid? That's there for a reason.
So yes, there's a lot of things that once you step up into the higher roles, it was kind of an eye-opener as to, a simple thing as zoning. So zoning is talking about the process of pulling objects forward, making sure that they're in the right location. Sometimes you'll have like a box set on the shelf 2 spaces over. Sometimes you think, oh, well, that's meant to be there. But then whenever you take a look at the barcode on the box and then you look at the barcode on the shelf, you're saying, oh, they don't match. They're different prices. Okay. So zoning is going ahead and making sure that you're pulling all the products in to the right positions, and so that it's also a presentable position. And when I became department manager and I started noticing, well, how does that affect the process of getting things right for the customers, but it was also getting things right for the business. And look, as an associate, I didn't pay too much attention to the zoning. I was like, my job is to help serve customers, and I'll get them the right products, and I'll try to do that, yada, yada, yada. I don't think I need to pay attention. But, you know, whenever we keep things orderly and we start noticing, okay, movies are being put out of place, we're noticing that security cameras are being put out of place, even if it's a small thing like movies, or it's big things, both have a significant impact on the business and how much profit it is that we're bringing into the store. And if from that profit, that affects us as associates that work there. And will they be giving us more hours? Possibly. If we start increasing profit, we can go ahead and start pushing those hours towards associates, so that way we can make sure people are available for serving people, and what kind of products we could even bring in, you know, from increasing something so little that I thought of as an associate when dealing with zoning and just putting things in the right place turned out to be something bigger. And that's not the only thing, but it's, you know, a main thing, a main component that I brought, that I could have told myself, hey, just because you're organizing and you're putting the items in the right location doesn't mean that it's, you know, redundant. It's that you are progressing forward. And with the system, with price changes, one of the things that it asks for is, do you have this amount of stock on the shelf right now? So if I was to go ahead and have an item that was a $300 security camera system, I have some in the back room, so I know that my machine knows that I have 2 in the back room. But the machine also thinks, well, supposedly you have 3 on the floor ready for customers to take. Well, if I go ahead and I'm working through my processes and I'm making a price change to say, hey, instead, I am going ahead and lowering the price to make it instead $150, half the price. Man, that's a big decrease. But I go to the shelf and I look to see how many I do have. And I only have 1, yet the system says I have 3. And let's say my associates didn't zone that day, or we didn't do the process of getting returns, or we didn't work the truck, we didn't go ahead and put out what I picked from the back room. That's a broken process. And whenever I've already tried to do my research, because I'm also trying to on every single detail that I need to do for the department, working with security, working with numbers, working with what we're planning to do, I don't have the time myself as a department manager to investigate. So if I have only 1 on the shelf, I'm going to say, okay, I only have 1 on the shelf. I take that action. Well, now I have missing merchandise. I have lost those 2 security systems that cost $300. But yet somehow, somewhere, let's say it comes back to the department. After a certain time point, if you don't catch it in time, you will diminish the amount of profit that you make in your store. And you could have made a bigger sale, or you could have actually covered the cost. So in that, it's very important, whatever these mundane things are, whether how small they could be, they make sure that whatever is the big picture, it's held together. And so that's where I think, you know, if I was to talk to myself as just a level A or level B, an entry level associate, I would want to make sure that I knew and really took it to heart that these processes that we do really make a bigger impact than what we think.
Okay.
So one of the themes, actually there's a couple of things that I'm picking up on just in hearing about your experience and your approach to teams and managing teams, I would kind of put under the umbrella of soft skills. So you've talked about, these are my words, not necessarily yours, but just paying attention to how others are feeling and being considerate or have empathy for some of the things that might be going on in their lives personally and how that might show up at work. And then you've also made the connection of how folks work, how that ties to the profitability of the business, the store.
Mhm.
So there's those things. And then I just get this sense of responsibility from you, that you take your responsibility as a manager very seriously. And so I want to try to tie all of those things together, or if you could tie them together in terms of teamwork and how you try to influence your teams beyond just the individuals, where it sounds like your expectation is everybody takes responsibility for their part. But with all of those things in the mix, right, what do you focus on in terms of getting the team to work together?
Okay, so one of the big things, because managing at a team of 10 plus, right? At some points, I will have people that are in a schedule that they will only work evenings, and at that point, I can't catch those people and talk to them personally and be able to let them know my emotion, let them know my expectations. So putting that aside, I mean, I do, of course, try to communicate as best as I can, and that's the difficulties that come with making sure that the teamwork is still followed through into the evening, into the overnight people that are working in a department. It takes a little bit more communication written and communication that's a little bit tougher for me to go ahead and distribute, because not all of my persons will also look into, hey, this binder that is our communications binder, not everybody takes that as a priority, as an initiative of being able to talk with me. They want to be able to talk with me person to person. And so I deal with that as a side note, working with people that are in supervisory roles as my same level who are working at their same time. And that's how I help, first off, with teamwork that's at a different time point than whenever I work. It is a little bit different, but I choose the people that are in supervisor leads that are working at those same time points who have a similar approach to how I expect the department to run, but also expect how they deliver the information. And so that one's first aside. That one's first for people that I can't approach for teamwork. The main approach, whenever I am on the clock and I am able to meet with the persons that are on my shift, that is a little bit of a different stand. And it's from first being able to let them recognize that if I'm telling them something of constructive feedback, it's not that I'm just directing it only towards them and they're not the only one that will be receiving that feedback. I will make it a point to let them know, look, I've already talked to Bethany about what happened here. I don't know who did it. And I don't want to make it so obvious if it's something if I would be personally attacking somebody. I don't make it obvious. I say it's an overarching thing that I don't know who it was. If I am requesting help from somebody, I will let them know the person that I would like them to help out with training from a coworker standpoint and not from a supervisory standpoint. So in the way that is, of course, constructive feedback is one thing that I let them know that it's a team that I'm dealing with and it's a team that I am coming to with the problem. And that helps reinforce that they all know that it's not anybody being singled out, it's that everybody's being talked to. So makes a bubble and makes sure that they're encompassed in that bubble of who I'm talking to and who I am directing my concerns, or what it is that is a new process, what it is as a department that we're going forward with. And so it's, if it's anything like with a personal problem that I see with process, that's where I'll take care of it. The next thing though with teamwork, it will be the fact that if a person does have a conflict with another coworker, myself in my role, I need to be able to hear the problem and first distinguish, is it something that's a personal issue or is it a business issue? Is it a training, working issue, or is this a personal issue between personality? It can happen where the personality issue happens, and to me, those are less prioritized, and I let them know, like, okay, look, I'll try to go ahead and talk to them and try to, steer them into the right direction. That's not something that that's not some way that you treat a coworker. That's not some way that you treat the customer. I'll let them know, so don't you worry. And in that way, with the personal issues, it's just not as big and not as detrimental if I don't follow through completely. Of course, it takes some following through and noticing that there's a difference, and I would be picking up on that. But the fact that it's a work issue, if it's a work problem, that teamwork will then start to hinder, and it's something that it's a priority. And because of that, it's because if I have one team member failing in their processes, in their work, in their work style, it's going to affect the team as a whole. So if a person is bringing that to my attention, that they're noticing that they're not stocking something on the shelf with the right security, if they're not following through with copyright compliance, if they're not following through with putting the papers of a contract into a secure location, then it starts to crumble the team and makes it start to make a chink in the chain, and you start to notice that pieces start falling apart and start going into their own directions on how they want to run their process or how they want to run the department. So that's a priority, and that's whenever we talk about teamwork, you want to hammer those details out, and you will follow through completely, because as a facilitator, as a supervisor, your role to help the team work together is also making sure that they are trained well, that they are following with the other components of the team. So, if that's why, if you look at personal issues, that's, noticing that as just a regular associate and bringing that to the department manager. I understand that there's going to be personal issues, but that's something that is not going to be prioritized, but it lets me know how effective they will be at their work. So if a person then comes to me that same day and says, so-and-so is not following through with this process, I at least know it's not something that is failing in training. It's something that was personal, and I can help streamline it whenever I approach them and say, look, just notice that, we are not putting security on these packages. What's on your mind? What's going on? And it develops an interaction that helps me be the leader, helps me be the one that everybody can come to, makes me the focal point. So that way they all know that they can talk amongst themselves, but we all come together to help me lead this team, and they come together to help me work this department, and we can succeed in this department and become the better department that I'm trying to lead us to be. And they are going to be a part of that because they are the main basis of what it is to be in this team and this department. And so just lastly, I just go ahead and make sure that with every single team member, you got to be thankful. And it's not that in that kind of mindset, of course, we're being paid to do a job, and we don't need to be thankful that we are doing it because, of course, we're getting paid. We should be doing it. But as a leader and as a coworker, it needs to be something that as saying thank you for doing your part. Like, it's an appreciation, it's a positive feedback that helps motivate and say, okay, because they did it right, I'm going to thank them. And that affects people, that affects a personal day, and that helps improve teamwork and improve that cohesiveness that happens. So just being thankful for everybody's hard work, and being thankful and being appreciative towards what everybody has done in the team, because that helps build the team together, whether on a coworker or a leadership to subordinate standpoint.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so to kind of summarize some of what you said, you talked a bit about communication. Obviously, that's very important to you. You talked about the difficulties of communicating with people who have their set day parts, you know, and you guys never really cross paths. And I've experienced that. It's tough. Yeah, you can only resort to written communication, and like you said, that's not always the most effective way. So I like your approach of taking a supervisor that you're comfortable with to go ahead and pass on that message. You also talk a lot, you talked a bit about the structure, you know, making sure everyone's just, you know, that's also very important. You talked a lot about being thankful. And I think that's really important. I notice you build a lot on your interpersonal skills with the team, and I think that's one of the most important things of teamwork. And you also kind of talked about creating energy in the sense of, you know, just making everyone want to be a part of something great. Like, hey, let's be that #1 department. Let's knock them out. Let's be the best. Let's set the example. So that's really cool. I wanted to talk about or ask you about conflict. So you did talk a bit about that, and distinguishing between personal conflict and, you know, kind of like, is it task or business conflicts kind of a thing. Do you think it's possible for those two to be intertwined? In the sense, do you think maybe a task or someone who's kind of failing and letting everyone down training, that can turn into a personal problem and kind of spiral out of control from there? Or do you think those are always just, you know, two distinct types of conflict? What do you think about that?
I'm gonna ask a little bit of clarification, but
No, go ahead.
So the question is, you know, do I find a difference between a task conflict or a...
To be specific, do you think, for example, a task conflict can spiral into a personal conflict where, let's say, someone, you know, keeps dropping the ball, and then as a team you kind of, or maybe individually, someone has a bias towards that person from then on out, and then it's, you know, personal plus task conflict?
All right,
or do you always think at its core it's one or the other?
So one of the things that task conflict is prevalent in is that whenever we talk about for me, in my role, I've seen a task conflict come out of overnights, a shift that goes ahead and is not during my time to go ahead and supervise them to make sure that they're being trained correctly. And it's then on the assistant managers that are working during that time. So the people of overnight are having a different leadership, different set schedules, and they are paid differently. And it's a very different dynamic towards what it is during the day shift.
It's like day and night almost. Very different.
So whenever we talk about, if there is a person on overnight that is not well and is not doing the proper procedures, it will start to affect more and more into what the day shift is doing. Because once that hitch in the giddy up happens during overnights. Well, whenever we have day shift associates, they start to believe, no, it's not that, because they had all the time in the world overnight. It's just that they didn't want to work and they didn't want to do what they needed to do. And it'll happen because whenever it's something that, especially during those kinds of times, it's going to present a problem, and it's going to be more of a personal problem, and it's going to be starting to direct towards, hey, this overnight person is being the problem, is a personal issue, and I don't like them. They are just lazy, or it'll start to develop into something. So, it is a definite problem, and I've had to deal with it myself. And one of the things is that I have to, it's one of those things that is coming from feedback from an associate to me. And I would need to address it, and I will do, and as it is stated, I need to provide that level of communication between them as associates to the overnight staff. So I need to be directing, okay, look, what seems to be going on here. This is what I've been seeing as a problem. And I'll go to the supervisor of the overnight staff, and I will go directly to questioning them if I can in person, so that way they can understand my frustration that I'm bringing from my associates. Now, as I go ahead and I've already brought up that problem, I then will come to them and ask them, okay, so it is a big deal for them, but now I can understand that, last night was a 2-truck night. Normally we only have 1 truck, but these 2 trucks were filled to the max as well, and you guys had barely any time to do all of the store, and there's even some pallets left on the floor, so it affects other departments too. I get it. I just was wondering where was the disconnect for our department. So I'll bring a frustration, and I'll bring it up to invoke emotion, so that way they can see the what it is that is personal problem. But then I will go ahead and follow through with, okay, now, was this something that was task, or was this something as a personal attitude of an associate? So it's then you need to just make sure that you're defining, well, is it really a task, or is it really something of a personal issue between coworkers? And it'll happen. And the best thing that you can do is bring up the problem, bring up but try to provide a resolution as well. Like, okay, try to think about it. If you were in their shoes whenever they were doing their tasks, what do you think could have been a problem that arose? And that's how you can make sure that you're not trying to attack them personally, and you're going to start to try to figure it out as like what it is happening for the team, what it is that they were doing, what it is that had happened, so that way you're not affecting your teamwork with that person. So, and I've seen it just develop, and it has gotten a lot better for my department whenever I've brought that up, and I've also brought up the fact that I can understand there's always going to be something of a hitch somewhere. So task can turn into a problem, but you need to just make sure that you resolve the problem and really define to yourself, was it something that was task? Was it something that was a surprise? Or was it personal? And from there on, you can just start to resolve that conflict.
All right, very well thought out. I like that. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. So in one of my past classes, I learned about the concept of buoyancy. And it's basically where you as a leader are kept afloat figuratively by your staff. So do you feel as if you are kept buoyant by your staff? And if so, what do you feel are are the reasons for that? Like, what are the best aspects of your leadership in handling that team that keep you afloat?
Okay. So, and just to make sure, like buoyancy is kind of as in a definition to say, um, I am being pushed up at maintaining that leadership role. Like my associates are helping me just be, they're just pushing me upwards to make
Well,
sure that.
pushing you, but they're also supporting you. I know what Ethan's talking about. I learned about that. But yeah,
Yeah.
they're holding you up there, but they're also supporting you and kind of like, they got your back.
Exactly. Okay. So I will tell you this. I have noticed that. I noticed that I have developed the thing that I've noticed for my department and my team is that they do provide that buoyancy. If I've looked at other teams inside the store, that kind of effect of buoyancy tends to be different, and it isn't as strong as the team that I have. And it will be something that I think it should be understood that it's the way that you will be connecting with your peers. And if I was to say anything, it was first off, sure, I was their same coworker, and I was working with them, and it developed a relationship because it does. But it's also whenever I got into that leadership role, I didn't just expect to be pushed up or to be supported. Whenever it came down to starting off in that leadership role, even though I was being pushed up and being supported by peers and saying, hey, like, I will help you do this process, I will help you do this, I will help you do that, I wanted to also be able to, in a metaphorical sense, pull myself and sink myself a little bit. Why? Because it's something that helps me connect with my associates. If I'm being pushed too far up, if I'm being put onto this pedestal, it will diminish the way that I connect with my associates and with the workers and with what it is as my credibility. My credibility diminishes whenever I'm put onto a pedestal, because then, what's to say, hey, he doesn't seem to be working like we are here. He doesn't know what's going on the floor. And, they start to lose the teamwork aspect, and they start to, it will happen, and you'll start to get a hole in your boat, and you will start to sink with your credibility and with your work ethic and with where you're going towards with department. So I know, though, because of the training that I've had as well, that my credibility has skyrocketed. I have the support from everybody, but I also have that challenging from certain associates because of the fact that if I have such a strong credibility, sometimes it's for their own sake to know why they're supporting it. And they will go ahead and push to say, well, this doesn't seem to be right, and this doesn't seem to work. And we work with those kinds of conflicts. But it then, once you go ahead and follow through with that, you will become a much sturdier structure-wise when you are able to know that you're not on a pedestal, you're working just like a worker like them. And I say them because, of course, we do different processes and we have different titles. But you also need to realize that you yourself are a worker as well, and they are workers as well. And the support also is coming from a personal effect, not only from a supervisory role. It's, you will have to make sure that if you're having that buoyancy, that it comes from sure your titles, sure your training, sure what your knowledge is on products or on what it is that you're doing, but that support also comes from being a personal leader and being able to come to them personally, and them to come to personally to you with their problems. So you need to be able to, for that buoyancy to actually work, you need to be able to work those two methods of, sure, I can follow orders and make sure that I am making sure that like everything's done in a business standpoint, but I also need to make sure that I'm making it visible to them that I am also a person, that I'm also working with them, that I also do what I ask them to do. Because if I don't do what what I'm asking them for, changing out a whole section of products, what is it that it means that I'm doing? What am I doing that could be so important that I'm not able to help out? So that's something that, to help bring that support and know that support, is that if you are able to help out in those processes, it does help support yourself and helps them support you as an individual, and they back you up whenever you are fighting for something that is right for the department or for a personal issue. They will fight for you as well. And so that's something that, it's a bit that you learn whenever you change from being with them to leading them.
Great, thank you. So we have about 15 minutes left, which will probably be about one question for the team per person. So one of the things that I'm curious about, back to our areas of focus, is team building, forming teams. And so can you speak to how you go about selecting individuals to be on your team? What are the things that you look for? What are the values that you prioritize? And maybe even speak to experiences that didn't go so well, when you had to learn the hard way that you hired the wrong person.
Okay, so so I will state that, yeah, there's whenever I am thinking about building this team and also helping build this team together, I do have my say in what I could have as an associate work with me in this department. Some of the factors that it will be a little bit tough to determine. The first one is my most important one, but it's also the hardest kind of to determine: the work ethic. What it is that, if that person has a drive to work, if somebody is able to do something and do a task, sure, that they're working, right? But what's to say that they are going to be listening to you if you change that process? Because whenever I've looked at some associates to bring over, sure, they do their work well, but they start to be shown different ways and how to change themselves to go ahead and be better at the job. They like to stick with old habits, which then affects, they don't want to keep improving in work. They just want to do their tasks over and over again and not really want to do anything. So the first really important thing is actually knowing who is ready to work, who is actually looking for work. And I've noticed that with one associate in particular who didn't have any skills in electronics or entertainment, and didn't have any skills with personally communicating with customers. She came into this department, she had nothing else. But the one thing that was noticeable, and that I noticed, and that I knew that she was going to be a good worker, which she now has really come out and really become somebody better, is because she looked for answers. She questioned a lot, not in a judgmental or a challenging way, but in a questioning of how we do things and how we can move forward, and what she can do to better help me in the supervisory role. But from that, it was that whenever I gave her constructive feedback of, let's say, other coworkers commenting on her, or let's say a customer coming to me and saying, this was not a great experience. Whenever I come to her, and I come to her as a coworker, no longer as a too much as a supervisor, but she notices that I'm a supervisor. But since I'm on a personal level, I can help her with developing those skills of how to interact with customers, and she's improved. She's improved far more than what I was gonna, than what I thought she would, and she's been being able to do it relatively quickly, and that's a big part. And the technical side, teaching her, having a coworkers teach her, that's something that can be easily done whenever you're in any kind of job position. You know, you have your coworkers, you have a book, you can use the internet, you can learn the tasks, you can learn the objects, you can learn the merchandise, you can learn everything. But, you know, it's only for that initiative of wanting to work. So that's one quality that I look for. The second quality is that is then going to be the more technical side. You know, if I have somebody that's technical and can actually explain, well, how does a router work? How does a smart television work? How does the gaming system work? From then on, as long as they know what it is and they can explain it in so much detail, it's then working with them to, and why I like that is because then they already know the products. They already know what's going on with the products. All it is now is just trying to get them to communicate it effectively with customers. And that's another kind of an easy process because we go ahead and can do role playing. We can also learn from a certain interaction that I notice of them and help direct them. Okay, I saw that how you approached this person whenever you know, they were around. First, you didn't acknowledge that they were even there and they were just 3 feet from you and they were looking confused and they didn't say anything, and then they finally looked and saw you and they said, hey, I need help, and then you said, okay. So, you know, you can develop people who are technical into realizing, okay, think about, you know, these people as a blank slate and try to write it down so that way anybody could go ahead and read what you're writing and read what you're saying. And so that way, okay, I can actually tell them how a router works and tell them, you know, what it is that you need to do to actually get to where you need to go. So technical skills is a definite thing.
So I heard work ethic, somebody that takes pride in their work, willingness to change and learn new things, do things differently, somebody that's resourceful, and also teachable. And then ideally too, you know, if somebody has some existing knowledge that you can work with, that's something else you look for. So yeah. Thank you. Sarah, do you have a final question or anything you're curious to?
Yeah, kind of just building off what you said. I really liked that story about, you know, that turnaround with that girl you had transfer your department, because, you know, I've been there and it's tough. It's not easy to do as a leader to invest in that person and try, you know, to get them where you want to be, even if it doesn't seem like they're very close to where you want them. So I really appreciate how you were able to see that little light in her. And yeah, like I said, it's really difficult just kind of defining the skills in those people that are, you know, that are lacking a bit. So what I would want to know out of that is just what are your ways to motivate people to, so what were some of kind of your techniques to motivate her to want to get her to be part of this, you know, this great team that you know, you're leading, and how do you motivate others on your team to excel?
Okay. So one of the things that for motivation is that first off, without them knowing, I'll observe them. So that way I can understand what it is that they do. Evaluate your team members and evaluate how they work. And so that way, whenever you go ahead and are trying to motivate them, you start to learn what they appreciate, what they use to fuel the positivity, fuel what it is that they would want out of work. And so you'll first, it's for me, it's like you know, first is understanding the associate, understanding the team worker, and then letting them know that do this one task for me. Assign a task that you can, that is a small portion of where you want to see them head towards. So get them out of their comfort zone if it needs be for doing the task. That way you can see them, okay, I'm motivating you to become a leader. So I'm going to start giving you the task of, okay, like, why don't you plan out with everybody after I'm gone and just kind of start doing this. And then also, hey, while I'm here, just go ahead and I got to run to the back. And you can tell the other associates, that I was wanting them to do this, this, and this. And so you start to delve into, okay, let's see you actually develop your tasks, develop what it is that is the job. And then for the motivation part, let them see you knowingly seeing them. So I will be also, I'll take a quick run to the back. After I've said that for them to go ahead and lead the people, I'll just quickly come back out because I just had to run and get a pen or something. And I'll just walk on the perimeter and I'll start to notice, what's going on. What is the interactions that's going on there? And maybe I'll just start writing stuff on the clipboard because I maybe have numbers to do, or a checklist that I need to be going through for the department. Okay, so as I'm going ahead and looking through, I get to be presenting them that I am actually there and I can see them doing the project and doing the task. So, okay, so then they want to, once they notice that, they start to realize that, I am noticing and I am seeing it, and it helps them see, okay, maybe I should be pushing myself a little bit harder because, maybe I can direct the other people better, or maybe I can start to help each other out like that. And it's something that it's a process because you want to understand your person. You want to go ahead and give them a task that's going to go ahead and streamline them to where you want them to go. And then you want them to notice that you're noticing them. Afterwards, you go ahead and provide that constructive feedback. You say, you did a really good job with letting them know what I needed them to do. You did a good job. You want to appreciate the work that they did, and then let them know, okay, look, because I want, for next time, because I did see you played with the words a little bit there. You were being a little bit too strict with so-and-so. Like, just realize, you can't be just so strict like that. So in those cases, it's something that you then do that constructive feedback. You then help them see, look, you're doing a great job. I value what you did. I value what you do, and I want us to and help me as well, because we're doing it all together. And so whenever it is motivation, it's hard to get the correct motivation for everybody. And to lead a team, it's going to be hard, but first you want to start off personally with different people, and then whenever it's talking about a team, then okay, we'll bring it all together, and we'll motivate us to, hey, let's get as many insurance plans on these products or whatnot. I mean, a silly example, but just like, let's reach our goal, because in that goal, it'll also affect you with your bonuses each quarter. You will be helping the whole store out, but you'll be helping yourself out too. And so it makes sure that whenever we talk about motivation, we see that it's not only just that I'm just going to be helping that person. It helps me out myself too. So that motivation to help myself out, but also I am affecting other people. Okay. It brings them into the light, and it helps that motivation shine through,
That's great. So Ethan, we have just a few minutes. If there's a final question, maybe you want to ask Raphael.
I actually didn't prepare myself for the question, but
No,
Let's cap it off with one last
And if
one.
you don't-
real quick, Raphael, if there is, I think it's easy dealing with the good people in teams. what about the people that just clearly don't want to be there, but they don't do enough where you fire them or whatever? Do you just kind of minimize their work, or do you? It's tough because other people have to compensate for their work, but
Okay.
how do you deal with that?
Because that is always going to show. So I will not minimize their work. I will not increase their work. I will expect them to do the same processes that everybody else is doing. The one thing is that I want to hammer out if somebody is not wanting to be there, and if somebody's not wanting to work, I will make sure that to make sure that I'm sane and that I know what's going on, I will make sure that they are trained properly. So wait, do you know how to do this process? Do you know what's expected whenever we do this? Do you know how to do that? Okay, show me real quick how you do it. So that way I can like see, how's it going? Okay. Starts doing it, knows how to do it, does it right. All right, sounds good. Well, just wanted to make sure that you knew what you were doing. If that person, once I know that they are able to do the task and they are not finishing them, not completing them, not working to their best of their abilities, okay, because of course I'll invest in the personal side whenever I first see them, and I'll ask them about their day and I'll get to know them for that day. But if this is something that's kind of like an underlying theme that every single day at work, it's like, no, I don't want to be here. First, it's the technical. Then I'm going to start talking to you. I will say, what's going on? Why is this up? What's slowing you down? What's going on here? Nothing to be a personal attack. It's just that I want to know, what seems to be the problem? What's going on? Is there something that is there too many customers or whatnot? I can give them a simple I can give them a slight answer for them to go ahead and tell me that same thing back over and say, oh yeah, there's a lot of customers. But whenever I notice that I'm walking around for the whole day on the floor and there's nobody and it's the task is still not being done, it's more of a personal issue. So then I start to bring it up and I start to make sure that my supervisor knows, okay, look, I have a problem associate. I am taking my tasks to go ahead and make sure that they're working for their job because they're here to work for their job. I let them know that I'm working on it, but I will also need their help to go ahead and step in from a very higher up position than I am and bring that, say, hey, it came to my attention, it seems like you're not finishing your tasks. And that way, if it comes from somebody higher than me, they start to realize that there is an issue and there's something going on. And if they have a problem with me, could be, they actually can tell my superior what's been going on. But whenever they start to go ahead and be not wanting to work for them, we need to make sure that because in different workplaces, there's always going to be a different way of disciplining. But with Walmart, they're called coachings. And with coaching, if you get 3 coachings, you will be fired.
Ooh.
So with that, I let them know. And, if need be, then we pull them aside. We pull them to a confined area, like a solitary area. And we tell them, this is going to be your first coaching because we've not seen improvement. We have worked with you. We've also been trying to go ahead and motivate you. And it's a bigger process than just that. And it takes a lot more time to just really explain into depth what is the real primary actions. But, we want to see if it was technical or if it was, and then after the technical side, is it personal? After the personal side, you will get your coaching. Because if your attitude is not changing, then we need to go ahead and let you know that that's something that's not acceptable for being able to work in the store. So if things come to that and you start to notice people that do not want to work, you want to start off trying to solve the problem yourself. Start off with trying to solve the training. After that, solve the personal issues. After that, you're clearly not meant to be a part of the team because you're clearly not helping the team succeed. And so,
That's really helpful structure. That's great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Are there any other questions? I feel like we've had a really thorough interview that covered our areas of focus well.
mhm.
So if there aren't any other questions, and I'll just offer, Raphael, you've been talking, so I'm not sure that you want to talk anymore, but if there's anything you want to speak to now, otherwise we have about 34 minutes before we're scheduled for our next call.
Break time.
Okay.
Dinner
Raphael,
time.
thank you so much for being the person, the interviewee. Did a great job, and
You were a great interviewee, and Marcy, you were a great moderator too. Ethan, you were a great question asker, as was I. I think this was a really good interview.
Good work, guys. We'll talk here in about 33 minutes.
All right. See you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.